They say there are prisons on earth where no man escapes. But there are prisons beyond this world, built not with stone, iron, or steel, but with chains of shadow and silence, where no sunlight has ever touched, and no song of freedom has ever been heard. The ancient text known as the Book of Enoch dares to describe them, the hidden dungeons of eternity, where angels, once radiant with light, now lie bound in darkness, waiting for the final judgment. The Bible hints at it. Jude speaks of angels, kept in everlasting chains under darkness until the judgment of the great day. Peter writes of those who sinned, cast into gloomy pits, reserved for torment. But Enoch opens the veil. He tells us what cannot be easily spoken, what humanity was never meant to know in detail, that the rebellion of the heavenly host was not just an act of pride, but an infection that bled into the soul of mankind. And for that corruption, punishment had to be absolute. Imagine for a moment the Watchers, beings of glory once clothed in brilliance, descending into the world of men. They came not as servants of heaven, but as thieves of secrets. They revealed forbidden arts, twisted knowledge, and ignited desires that humanity was never meant to handle. From them came arrogance, violence, and hunger for power. From them came giants, spirits restless, tearing the world apart. And so, judgment fell, not upon mankind first, but upon those who led them astray. The chains were forged, not of metal, but of eternal decree, of divine law, of spiritual binding that no force in creation can break. Picture an abyss, deep beyond imagination, blacker than any night, colder than the silence between stars. There, these angels are confined, their wings broken, their voices silenced, their eyes filled not with the fire of glory, but with the shadow of despair. Enoch describes this as the valley of darkness, a place where the very air is heavy with silence, where rivers of fire move without light, and where the screams of eternity are swallowed before they can even escape the lips. This is not a metaphor, not merely a symbol. It is a prison, real and unyielding. The fallen do not wander free. They are chained, waiting, counting every endless moment until the great day of judgment arrives. Think of it like this. Time itself is different in such a place. For us, days pass with the rising and setting of the sun. For them, there is no sun, no moon, no rhythm of light. There is only the eternal weight of waiting, each second stretching into centuries, each century stretching into eternity. Bound by chains of shadow, they cannot move, they cannot flee, they cannot undo what was done. Their rebellion is sealed into their very being, and their punishment is sealed into their eternity. But why chains? Why imprisonment? Because the cosmos itself demands justice. In the unseen laws of heaven, sin is not erased by forgetfulness. It demands consequence. And when a being of heaven turns its light into darkness, the consequence must match the crime. Chains are the image of restraint, the symbol of what was lost. These angels, once free to move across galaxies, now cannot take a single step. They, who once opened forbidden doors for humanity, now see all doors closed forever. And here is the warning that burns beneath the words of Enoch. If angels, beings of higher nature, could fall so deep, what of man? If those clothed with celestial fire could be bound in chains of shadow, what awaits the flesh of dust and bone? The story of their imprisonment is not just a chronicle of their downfall. It is a mirror, showing us the gravity of rebellion, the weight of corruption, the cost of pride. The Book of Enoch is not entertainment. It is a revelation, and its revelation is terrifying in its simplicity. No one escapes judgment, not the angels of heaven, not the giants of the earth, not the kings of empires, not the nameless wanderer who thinks his deeds are forgotten. Every secret is recorded, every shadow is remembered, and every rebellion, whether in the heavens or in the earth, will face its chains. So we begin here, at the edge of the abyss, listening to the silence of eternity, the silence of angels who once sang in choirs of light, but now can only remember the echo of their own songs. They are waiting, we are watching, and judgment is coming. Close your eyes for a moment and try to imagine the valley that Enoch saw. It was not a valley of green fields, nor mountains kissed by the sun. It was a land where the horizon itself seemed broken, where the ground cracked open into bottomless pits, where shadows moved like living creatures. Enoch calls it a place of chaos, a prison not built for men, but for spirits too dangerous to be left free. The angels, the watchers, once walked with dignity. They were leaders of light, beings entrusted with order. But when they looked upon the daughters of men, when their desire overcame their purpose, they crossed the line that separates obedience from rebellion. They gave mankind forbidden knowledge, weapons of war, enchantments, vanity, the twisted arts of seduction. They planted seeds that grew into a forest of corruption, and for that, their fate was sealed. Enoch describes chains of unimaginable force, not forged by blacksmiths, not built with hands, but spoken into existence by the word of the Almighty. Chains that pierce spirit and thought, binding not only body but will. These chains are eternal, unbreakable, unyielding. No pleading, no bargaining, no trick of power can undo them. And so, those who once taught humanity to rebel now sit in silence, condemned by their own lessons. Think of their torment: to be immortal, yet trapped; to be awake, yet unable to move; to remember eternity past and to wait for eternity future. Every moment, the weight of what they did presses against them. They hear the cries of the world they corrupted. They see the consequences of their rebellion, and yet they cannot intervene. They cannot undo. They cannot escape. This is not fire alone. This is despair without end. The book of Enoch tells us that even their leader, Azazel, was cast into the wilderness, his face covered, his form buried under sharp rocks in the desert of Dudael. From there, his name became a curse, a reminder of shame, and like him, all the others are imprisoned, awaiting their final trial. Their existence is not erased. No, their existence becomes the testimony of what happens when the highest of beings turns from light to darkness. Imagine walking through that valley in a vision. The silence is suffocating. You would see shapes, like mountains chained to the earth, their eyes glowing faintly like dying coals. You would hear whispers, not in language, but in dread, the sound of regret echoing through eternity. Rivers of black fire run through the abyss, not warm, not bright, but consuming everything they touch. This is not chaos. This is perfect judgment, each detail crafted to reflect the weight of their rebellion. And Enoch does not leave it as a story about angels alone. He ties their fate to the fate of humanity. For just as the angels fell, so too did mankind follow. The giants, born of their forbidden unions, became monsters that devoured the earth. When they were destroyed, their spirits remained, restless, wandering, tormenting, becoming the origin of what many call demons. And what is their desire? To drag mankind into the same abyss where their fathers lie bound. Here lies the deeper warning: sin does not stay contained. The rebellion of the Watchers spilled into mankind, and mankind's corruption echoed back into the heavens. The chain that binds them is also the chain that awaits every rebellion, whether celestial or human. Enoch speaks not only of their punishment, but of the mirror it holds up to us. We too choose light or shadow. We too face the weight of judgment. Picture it as a story told like firelight at night, but instead of warmth, it chills the soul. Once there were angels. They defied heaven. They descended. They broke the boundaries of creation, and now they sit in darkness, chained in silence, waiting, not dead, not asleep, not forgotten, waiting. Their chains are proof that judgment is not delayed forever. Judgment is certain. Judgment is coming. And here is the chilling thought: the chains do not free themselves. Time will not rust them. Eternity will not loosen them. They remain, holding the fallen, until the trumpet of judgment sounds, until the day when all hidden things are revealed. This is where the book of Enoch draws us, not into myths, not into legends, but into visions of ultimate consequence. The chains of darkness are not just theirs, they are the shadow of what awaits all rebellion, all corruption, all defiance of the eternal law. And as you hear these words, as you see these visions in your mind, remember, if even angels could not escape, neither can we. There is a detail in Enoch's vision that people often miss. The chains are not only around wrists and ankles, they are around time, they are around memory, they are around desire. The prison is not just a place, it is a condition. When Enoch is led through the places of judgment, he sees not just pits and caverns, but systems, orders, appointed seasons, a law that does not bend because it was spoken by the one who does not change. Imagine a guide beside him, calm, severe, full of light. Whether you call him Uriel or simply the messenger, he gestures toward an abyss where winds rise and fall like breathing. On one side, heat, on the other, cold. The fallen are placed where the winds answer them back. Heat for violence, cold for pride, silence for deceit. The punishment fits the shape of the sin, not because God delights in pain, but because reality itself corrects what rebels tried to twist. Enoch sees a prison for the stars, a place where heavenly bodies burn not with glory, but with consequence. Think of a sun that gives no warmth, a flame that brings no light, a spark that never reaches dawn. Once these beings shone upon creation, now their fire scorches only themselves. It is not mindless torment, it is exact. It says, "You were given radiance to guide, and you used it to mislead. Now your own radiance circles back, and you must face what you made of yourself." The messenger explains, with a voice like a clear bell in a hard winter, "These are reserved for the great day." The words are simple, but they carry a world inside them. Reserved, set aside, untouched, held for something that is not yet, but certainly will be. The great day, the moment when every story meets its ending, when every mask falls, when every hidden thing is brought into the open. The chains are not delay, the chains are a promise. Enoch passes a valley that seems to move, like the earth is breathing in its sleep. There are mouths in the ground, not like monsters, but like courtrooms, openings where sentences were spoken and sealed. You can almost hear the echoes, not rage, not noise, but verdict. Guilty, bound, wait. There is no hurry in this place. Judgment is not rushed, it is precise. Each chain, each cavern, each wind has a reason. Then comes a scene that hurts to remember. The watchers asked for mercy. They once asked Enoch to write a petition, to carry their plea before the throne. They wanted their peace back, their place back, their shining days restored. But the answer came like thunder in a word. No, not because mercy is small, but because their rebellion was not a fall by accident. It was chosen, it was taught, it was spread. They did not slip, they led. And those who chose to become the doorway. For corruption cannot claim innocence when rot fills the room. There is a lesson here for us, and it is sharper than a blade. Some gates once opened cannot be closed by the one who kicked them down. You can choose to release poison, but you do not get to choose where it flows. The Watchers taught men how to magnify vanity, how to turn beauty into bait, how to forge weapons and make profit from blood. They did not invent evil, but they fed it and gave it tools. The chains answer that with unbroken calm. You will not teach again. Walk further with Enoch. He sees places where spirits of the mighty cry out, places where the restlessness of the giants moves without bodies, places where the world seems to remember a flood that washed but did not forget. There is a quiet law humming under the dark. What you sow becomes what binds you. If you sow chains for others, fear, seduction, lies, those chains return like homing birds. If you sow corruption, corruption becomes the air your lungs must breathe. This is not superstition. It is the architecture of a moral universe. And how does this touch our small lives, far away from watchers in ancient valleys? More than we think. Look at our age. We still worship the same forbidden knowledge, just wearing new names. We make weapons of words and call it strategy. We sell painted illusions and call it influence. We turn desire into economy and call it freedom. We polish steel and glass and pretend they make us gods. The old lessons have new packaging, but the strings attach to the same puppeteer: pride. The chains of darkness do not appear when the first step is taken. They appear after the steps become a pattern. They appear when habit hardens into identity. We call it who I am, and that is the most frightening part. The watchers crossed a line and then taught others to cross it until the line itself was erased. That is how chains grow, when we forget where the boundary was and laugh at anyone who remembers. But the messenger also shows Enoch another reality, one that our ears struggle to accept. Containment is kindness to the world that remains. When a river is poisoned, you must put a wall around the poison first, then you cleanse. The chains are the wall. They stop the spread. They say, enough. Here, no farther. Judgment is not a tantrum from heaven. It is a surgeon's hand. It cuts to save. And there is still a difference the vision refuses to blur. Angels and men do not stand in the same place. The watchers chose from a height we cannot measure. Their knowledge was pure. Their place was near the light. We stumble, in dust and shadows, half blind, easily fooled, easily afraid. This does not excuse us, but it changes what mercy looks like. For men, there is repentance. There is return. There is a door through humility. The chains of discipline can break the chains of darkness if we take them early, if we take them freely, if we bow before we break. So the question comes to us now in the echo of Enoch's valley. Which chains do you want? The chain of appetite, that drags you without asking, or the chain of choice, the narrow path, the self-mastery that looks like loss but leads to life? One chain grows in secret until it snaps shut. The other, you tie around your own will so that your will can be free. The vision closes its circle. Enoch hears a sentence repeated in the depths, until the great day. He looks at the stars. Some move in hymn-like order. Others are still, bound in their strange prisons. He looks at the winds. Some heal, some scour. He looks at the pits. Some wait empty. Some hold those who once shone. All of it hums the same certainty. The clock of judgment does not tick loudly, but it does not stop. Night in the valley does not end, but Enoch is brought back to the land of light long enough to carry a warning. This is the warning. Do not think delay means denial. Do not mistake patience for permission. The chains are set. The day is appointed. Learn from the fallen while you still walk free. Choose your chains before the darkness chooses them for you. And somewhere in that cold valley where the breath of worlds trembles, something like a trumpet is being forged. It is not sounding yet, but it will. If you have ever stood in a courtroom, you know the weight that fills the room before the judge arrives. People whisper less. Paper sounds louder than it should. Time seems to hold its breath. Now expand that feeling until it fills the sky. That is the atmosphere of the great day in Enoch's vision. The day the chains are no longer just a promise, but a passage to the final sentence. Books are opened. Not the kind we buy, not the kind we burn, but the kind that cannot be edited. They are records, untouched by spin, immune to excuses. Deeds are there, but motives are there too. What we did is written, but why we did it is written beside it. In a script we can deny on earth, but not in eternity. No one is misquoted. No one is misunderstood. Every page is a mirror. The watchers are brought forth, not to speak, but to be seen. Their greatness is not erased. It is what makes their fall so terrible. You can still sense what they were: leaders, lights, guardians. And that is exactly why the sentence is heavy. The taller the tower, the louder the crash. Their chains do not jingle or clatter. They are like the gravity of a dead star, silent, inescapable, absolute. Judgment is not chaos. It is clarity. The Most High does not shout. He does not argue. He declares. There is no debate because the time for debate was before the rebellion, before the teaching of forbidden arts, before the long patience that gave room for repentance. There is a strange peace in that court, fearful, yes, but clean, like the air after a storm. Enoch's eyes follow where they are sent. There is a lake, or something like it, but it does not behave like water. It burns without flame. It holds without walls. It receives what refuses light. The river that was black in the abyss becomes a sea here, vast, solemn, still. The fallen are not thrown in with laughter or cruelty. They are delivered to the end they chose, to the distance they wanted from the throne. No bribe can reach this place. No new knowledge can unlock it. The age of cleverness is over, and then, like a thread of silver through dark fabric, Enoch's vision turns toward men, toward us. This is the part we cannot skip. The court that judges the angels is also the court that judges kings and beggars, wise and foolish, the loud and the quiet. The difference is not in power, the difference is in possibility. Men can repent, men can be changed, men can be washed, rebuilt, redirected. The chains that bind us can be broken by grace if we bow, if we ask, if we turn. Do not misunderstand the offer. Grace is not the erasing of justice. It is justice carried by another at a cost we could not pay. It does not say, your deeds did not matter. It says, your deeds mattered so much that someone had to stand where you should have stood. That is why grace humbles. That is why pride hates it. Pride wants to break chains by force. Grace breaks them by surrender. The messenger points to two roads. He always does, though sometimes we pretend not to see. One road is wide and bright at its start. It buzzes with approval, with flattery, with the soft touch of every appetite. Walk long enough, and you will find that the light was only reflection, the brightness only mirrors. At the end, there is a door of iron that opens inward and does not open out. The other road is narrow. It begins with a small gate that asks for your weapons, your masks, your crowns. It feels like loss. It feels like dying. But once you pass the gate, the path rises, breath returns, the sky widens. And at the end, there is not a door of iron, but a table. Choose now, the vision says, because the habit of your life hardens into the shape of your destiny. If you live by the chain of appetite, do not be surprised when appetite becomes your master. If you live by the chain of deceit, do not protest when truth feels like fire. If you live by the chain of pride, do not beg for wings when the abyss arrives. We become what we practice. We sit where our loves lead us. Enoch's final images are not there to satisfy curiosity. They are there to give weight to our minutes. He sees mountains that seemed eternal crumble like sand under the breath of God. He sees thrones removed and thrones restored. He sees the restless spirits of the giants lose their grip as the order of creation is set back in place by a word. He sees the chains of darkness do what they were made to do, hold evil until the world is safe again. And then he sees something like morning, not the cheap morning we speak of after a bad night, but the first morning, the kind that has no evening after it. In that light, nothing that hates the light can live. In that light, nothing that feeds on fear can breathe. The watchers chose against that light forever. Their sentence is not a surprise. It is the end of a long refusal. But for men, the morning is still offered, even now, even here, to any who will come. This is the heart of the message for us who listen in the dark. Bind yourself to what is good, or what is dark will bind itself to you. Tie your soul to truth, even when it burns your pride. Tie your mind to discipline, even when your desires shake the chain. Tie your heart to humility, because humility is the only door that opens on the other side of judgment. The great day will come. That is not a threat. It is a fact. When it does, no one will be confused. The chains will no longer be debated. The pit will no longer be denied. The court will no longer be mocked. And what will matter then is not how loudly we spoke, not how many followed us, not how cleverly we argued, but whether we loved the light enough to lose what the dark offered. Listen closely to the last sound in Enoch's book-shaped night. It is not the scream of the condemned. It is not the cheer of the crowd. It is a trumpet, clear and cold, that gathers the ages to a single point. After it sounds, the world will not be what it was. After it sounds, every chain will either fall or hold forever. Until then, the valley waits. The chains wait. And we, who still breathe, who still choose, are given one more day to decide which master we will serve. So hear this, friend watching in the glow of a small screen, in a quiet room, with your own shadows close. You are not yet bound by the chains of darkness. You are bound only by the time you are given and the choices you will make. If angels could not outrun justice, do not gamble that you can. If mercy is offered, do not answer it with pride. Walk while there is light. Choose while there is time. And let the chains you take upon yourself, truth, humility, discipline, be the ones that set you free.